we're at the point of the offseason where shit is about to start getting crazy. Between now and mock drafts start dropping, you're going to see a lot of crazy shit. We got an article written by NFL analysts that said the Bears should cut Jaylon Johnson. We'll talk a little bit about that. We got rumors of a DJ Moore and Maxx Crosby trade. We'll talk a little bit about that and more. We're going to dive into everything going on with our Chicago Bears right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Derek Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. And I hate starting off the episode with some foolishness, but I think we do got to discuss this one because, listen, I get it that a lot of people are trying to figure out how the Chicago Bears can create space this offseason to address their glaring need on the defensive line. A lot of people do think, me, myself included, the Bears are a consistent defensive line away and a healthy secondary away from truly possibly being Super Bowl contenders and contenders to win the NFC overall, but they have to get that done. With them being over the salary cap, there's a number of different permutations that they can use to try to get that done. We talked yesterday about how, they can try to get an injury out with Dayo Odeyingbo's contract to try to free up some cap space, which with the Bears being over $5.3 million over the salary cap, that would go a long way to just get them beneath the salary cap. They still have to do some other things to create some more meaningful space so they can do some stuff, but that contract alone would be a huge step that they would need to make. But with that said, there are some other things. Matt Okada, I flipped the K and the D, really weird there. Matt Okada of NFL.com talked about the Chicago Bears and what they can try to do to change their salary cap situation. And one of the things he talked about, and that was potentially cutting Jaylen Johnson and making him a salary cap casualty, saying this: Jaylen played 5 solid years for the Bears, earning consecutive Pro Bowl selections in 23 and 24. Before missing the majority of the 25 campaign with severe groin injury, he was largely considered a top 10 cornerback entering last season. So why is he a cut candidate? Well, there are surprisingly cuts every offseason, and they usually come down to money. Johnson carries a $24.5 million cap hit in 2026, and the Bears could save $15.5 million by designating him as a post-June 1st release. Their most lucrative option for that designation is also Johnson's 58.7 overall defensive grade from PFF, ranked 64th out of 98 corners in the league. He's still young, 27 years old, but Chicago could do a lot with that cap space. Here's the thing. Right, and this is why I say, and I say this to some of y'all respectfully, right? When people call in with some of the stuff, is that it's easy to think, if you just think about what creates the most cap space, right? Darius was one that left a voicemail, the other day in regards to that. And yeah, you can absolutely create cap space just by cutting people, but you got to think, are you creating another gap by cutting somebody? You're not finding another cornerback the caliber of Jaylen Johnson when he's healthy. Yes, last season was a down season, make no mistake about it, but it's large part due to injury. And I'd be more willing to bet on Jaylen Johnson getting back to being a top 10 corner in this league than I would us being able to replace somebody who can bring his production. And that's something to look at. I know Nahshon Wright's a free agent and all that type of stuff. Nahshon Wright is not Jaylen Johnson, not in coverage, not by any stretch of the imagination. This is why I say interceptions aren't the end-all, be-all on quality of cornerbacks, right? So you have to look at that part of it. Now, when it comes to Jaylen, I think that you want to keep the secondary intact. And I think I'll say this and knock on wood, because with my luck, I'll say it and then it'll happen. The chances of you running into an injury-plagued season in your secondary like you did last year, again this upcoming year, is very slim. It rarely happens, right? So the secondary and the cornerbacks have a good chance of being able to get back to being what they have been, right? We came into last season expecting the cornerback core to be one of the most solid groups in for the Chicago Bears. Injuries took that away. Now, on the flip side of that, now you have the part of it where now you're hoping that you get everybody back healthy. Now you got to fix your defensive line. Cutting Jaylen Johnson creates another huge question that the Chicago Bears do not have an answer for on their roster. It would be completely, entirely different if we were talking, even though I don't agree with cutting Cole Kmet, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with trading Cole Kmet. if people were to say, hey, Cole Kmet should be the one we use to free up some cap space because we have Colston Loveland, it would make some sense. You have somebody in the wings that is a starting level tight end that's going to be great, right? Colston Loveland is going to be amazing in a Bears uniform for years and years. That's one of the situations you can do that. We do not have somebody the caliber of a Jaylen Johnson on this team. Now, I know there are going to be some people, especially people that look at what he did last season with the injury, and they say, hey, we got to move off of that. And to a degree, I may be able. I understand some of the conversation around it, right? Like, I'm somebody who also doesn't want to trade DJ Moore necessarily, but I do realize that the wide receivers that we have here, there's a huge chance that they make the step up that they need to, and if we get another solid slot in here, we'll be perfectly fine. And if you need to cut DJ Moore or trade DJ Moore to get that end that you need, I can understand that happening. Again, we'll talk about that more in the next segment. But it's just, we are at the stupidity part of the offseason. Everybody's going to say, and listen, that's not to judge everyone. I'm going to say some stupid shit. We're going to say some stupid shit on this panel. There's going to be some stupid dumbass articles written. There's going to be some dumbass rumors that come out from aggregators. There's going to be a lot of stupidity around. The part of the offseason where nothing's going on, it leads a lot of people to blah, 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 and look fucking stupid. Like, that's just what happens here. This is stupid. This is dumb. And so it's not about, and I get it. They write the article so they can get clicks, and that's really what this feels like. This feels like a situation in which somebody wrote something there is a level of thought behind it. I'm not saying that there's not, but at the same time, it feels like somebody wrote something to be more shocking in the sense that, hey, let's go ahead and cut. Jaylen Johnson's a cut candidate. I highly don't believe that he is. And even with that said, Jaylen Johnson and the way that he performs, you can get more with trading him than cutting him. That's just the reality of it. You can get more by trading him than cutting him because he is 27 years old. He is one of the best cornerbacks in the league when healthy. And so, therefore, there are going to be teams that can be interested. Even if you do want to sit there and you look at Jaylen Johnson and the price tag and you're like, maybe we need to go ahead and move off that. There's a lot better options to do that than to try to just outwardly cut Jaylen Johnson and then let some team just walk up and sign one of the best corners in the league. That's stupid. It's dumb. It's objectively stupid. And so, that's what it comes down to. I get it. Jaylen Johnson's groin injury and the depth of that and how much that did hamper him this season is a concern. And it is something that a lot of people are going to look at and say, well, damn, what's really going on here with the fact that he missed so much of his season with a groin injury, and is it actually going to heal with this offseason? And so there's that, right? But I think overall, the Bears, I don't see them cutting Jaylen Johnson. If they were to look at Jaylen Johnson and feel like he doesn't need to be on this roster anymore for what they're doing or whatever else, there's a lot more avenues to trade him than what it is. Even if he gets down to the middle of the season, you can't do it this offseason. This would be a misappropriation of assets to me if that's what you do with the Jaylen Johnson thing. But again, I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I do want to hear from you guys on this one. How do you feel about Mike Okada's article here in regards to the Bears, Jaylen Johnson being a cut candidate for the Chicago Bears? I just don't agree. I don't see that. It doesn't sound like something that even makes sense in this one. And that's just my personal thought. That's my thought process on it. And I guess we'll see how it's going to shake out and how it's going to continue to grow and develop. So we'll see what Ryan Poles does. And like I keep saying, this is an off season where Ryan Poles got to get to cooking. He has to get to cooking. And what comes out of that is where we'll be as a team, and we'll see where things shake out and where they are at that point in time. But I don't think that this is the route that Ryan Poles will go. He's way too smart, way too creative in how he uses his moves. And I think we also got to understand Ryan Poles still has an affinity for the players that are under him. And I know he didn't draft Jaylen Johnson, but you re-signed him. You prioritized him. You made him one of your leaders. You've gotten to know him over these years. And I don't think that Ryan Poles is at the position of being of wanting to move off of that. That's just my personal opinion. Let's see where it goes, and we'll cover it as things happen. But with that said, in talking about more ideas that are going to happen over the offseason, senior NFL writer for ESPN, Bill Barnwell, had an interesting article on a hypothetical trade scenarios to get teams for trade destinations for some of the players' names that are out there. Of course, Maxx Crosby is one of the biggest names out there in the trade market, and he proposed a trade that would send Maxx Crosby to the Chicago Bears. It would be the Raiders giving up Maxx Crosby and a 2027 fifth-round pick for DJ Moore and a 2026 first-round pick. Now, I want to label this out. First of all, if you're able to get Maxx Crosby for only a single first and DJ Moore, that is an amazing, amazing value. I want to be clear here. That's amazing value. Now, this does buck the trend of what we've actually heard that the Raiders want for Maxx Crosby. We've heard that they want 2 first-round picks, which is why a lot of Bears fans, myself included, have said, hey, it may be better to just sign Trey Hendrickson and create that space that way and sending out 2 first-round picks. Now, sending out 1 first-round pick is still a big ask. I want to be clear. That's still a major asset to give up is a first-round pick. Is Maxx Crosby worth that though? Yeah. Is the impact that he has worth it? Yeah. So you're giving up the first-round pick. Giving up DJ Moore is just the barrier of entry to also create the salary space that's needed to get him there. But the thing with this is, and Adam Schefter has said that the Raiders want a Micah Parsons-esque callback in exchange for Maxx Crosby. But Barnwell points out this. Crosby is 2 years older, is coming off back-to-back seasons impacted by injury, and has never been a first-team All-Pro or finished higher than 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting, which was crazy to read and crazy to see, but it's accurate, right? So with that said, if the Bears are able, who have the 25th pick in this draft, DJ Moore, the 25th pick for a 5th-round pick, and Maxx Crosby, would you do that trade? And me sitting here is like, I would probably do that every day of the week. And that's, again, not a knock on DJ Moore. Like I said to somebody in the comments the other day, right? It was just yesterday where they said, we can't let go of DJ Moore. He's the number 1. And I was like, okay, listen, I understand that thought, right? And I'm not trying to knock anybody who has that thought. But if is DJ Moore, do you feel so confident in DJ Moore as the number 1 to where if you had a chance to shore up your biggest need on your team, is it worth considering the depth that we have at wide receiver? And that's where you have to start at. Like, DJ Moore is a great talent. And I think what DJ Moore has done, he's always been ready when his number's called. He always plays games. He always is healthy. He bounces back from injuries. No matter what you're called upon him to do, he does something. When you need him to be productive, he finds a way to be productive. Trades aren't always about trading somebody because something is wrong with them. Sometimes you're trading a player because they are an asset, but what you're getting back for them is super valuable, so you have to give up something valuable in that case. And that's where I'm at with the DJ Moore part of it. I would love, and you guys know, all season long, I was saying when people were like, oh, well, Luther Burden's going to step up. We're not going to need DJ Moore. I'm like, hey, it's okay to operate from a place of having a plethora of talent, right? You can have a plethora of talent in a position. I would love for the Bears to be able to operate from that because we haven't always been able to do that. Like, that's what you want to be able to do as a team, especially when you're looking at making the move from rebuilding to contending, right? And that's the thing that you want to do. So I like DJ Moore here. I do think that Rome and Luther Burden could eventually be better than DJ Moore, if not already in some cases, right? DJ Moore isn't the greatest route runner, but then again, that goes to some of the streak because he isn't the greatest route runner. But if you get him the goddamn ball, then man's going to make some shit happen. But at the same time, if it comes to fixing the Bears' biggest need, I do think that we have enough depth at the wide receiver, and I also think we can find somebody to complement those 2 guys. Then at the same time, it's a risk that some people aren't willing to take. What if Luther Burden and Rome end up getting hurt again? What if they don't make that necessary step? And what if we are looking at it and saying, damn, what we're missing on this team is a DJ Moore? I'm not saying that it's just the most straightforward thing possible and everybody should be all gung-ho, locking arms and saying, let's trade DJ Moore. But it is something that you have to consider. And it's why I'm a guy that I'm happy that I'm not put in those situations to do that, right? So the Raiders, who do need receiving talent, there's no doubt about that. They want to help Mendoza with getting the receiving talent there. Mendoza's probably going to be the number 1 pick there in the 2026 draft. So they'd be thinking ahead, much like we did, with getting DJ Moore to, at that time, help evaluate Justin Fields before he moved on, those type of things. So it's there. It's there for that, right? And that's the question that the Bears have to answer here in what they do this offseason. And that's why I can't wait to see what Ryan Poles does. A DJ Moore for Maxx Crosby swap with picks is something that a lot of people have been talking about literally since this offseason came and started. We just got to see if that's the route that the Bears end up going. I have my personal doubts if that's the right route to go. But at the end of the day, like I said, Ryan Poles, with what he did last offseason, I'm gonna have faith in what the decisions that Ryan Poles makes. It doesn't mean that I won't have some questions in some decisions he makes. It won't mean I won't come in here and tell you, this could very well work, but I'm a little bit worried that it may not work. Those things are gonna happen. But if it means that you have to give up DJ Moore to get what you are missing the most on this team, would you not be willing to do it? And I think that's the question that ultimately it has to be answered in this. Is what you would miss from DJ Moore worth keeping him for what you are lacking in your defensive line? And that's the question. And of course, with Trey Hendrickson being there and other players being there, of course, it's led people to say, well, let's just sign the free agent and try to keep him. I mean, you still got to create the cap space though, right? And that's the next question for the Bears. So once all this starts happening, I can't wait to just things start willing and dealing, to be 100% honest with you. I can't wait to March. I just can't wait till we get to the place where we start seeing exactly what Poles is trying to cook up, when you start seeing the vision of how those things are going to start coming together for this team. And at that point, we'll see where we are. But with that said, of course, a lot of people are talking about draft, and I may actually start my mock drafts next week for the Chicago Bears. I'll talk to the guys to see if we can start getting those mock drafts in and start giving you guys that content. But you guys know I'm in heavy draft analysis mode myself, and I'm also going through and looking at a bunch of guys that we're talking about and that could come in here. Former scouting director Greg Gabriel has been talking a lot about what and players that the Bears could target in the draft, and most recently he brought up Gabe Jacas of Illinois. And this is a guy that has some interesting points of what he can really bring to the Chicago Bears potentially, and that's the thing that you really have to look at, right? When you look at it and you look at what he can potentially do as a pass rusher, it brings some very good potential there for the Chicago Bears, and that's really what you want to see, right? Drafting Jacas as well would definitely bring some history to the Chicago Bears as far as what they can ultimately do. This is a guy that has a very bright future ahead of him. Where he goes in the draft is going to be the interesting part of this, right? He can be a late first, he can be an early second round pick, and that's the part that you have to look at it for the Chicago Bears. But as a linebacker, and what the Bears have there, especially with the players that we're missing in the linebacker, TJ Edwards is probably not going to be healthy at the start of the season. Tremaine Edmonds, we got to see if he's even going to come back. Noah Sewell is definitely not going to be healthy. If the Bears keep him on the roster, he could be somebody that ends up being cut. Gabe Jacas, the linebacker, is 6'3", 275 pounds, a senior, coming out of Illinois, playing for the Fighting Illini. He's coming off a 43 tackle season last year, 23 of those being solo. He also had 11 sacks last year. But when you look at him over the course of his collegiate career, he never had a season with less than 4 sacks. The last 2 seasons of his collegiate career, 8 and 11 sacks with 3 forced fumbles in each of those years as well. This is a guy that brings so much potential versatility to the Chicago Bears that I love the potential that you have there. And, it's another guy that you can add to the list that you can take a look at, that you can put on your board and see what ultimately comes down to it. But I think this is a guy. Now, we know that Ryan Poles has not shied away from taking local guys, right? You look at, TJ Edwards, Scott Daly, those guys are from Chicago. Kieran Amagaje went to Hinsdale. You look at that as well. So, we've seen guys that, come locally, and maybe Ryan Poles even has maybe some connections with some local people that can tell them some things on him, because we know that Poles is going to do the character evaluation part of it as well. That's just part of how this team looks at things when it comes down to it. And I love this kid. I love what he can potentially bring as well for this one, man. So a lot of people focus on sacks, and that's a big thing for pass rushers. That's a big thing there. But you also have to look at some players that didn't have necessarily the highest sack total that still end up putting big pressure on teams, and that's what Gabe Jacas can bring as well. This is a talented young kid who has the advanced moves, the physical frame that you look at for as well, and the drive, I think, to where he's going to succeed at the NFL. And so it's a nice player to bring up for the Bears as to potentially take a look at in this offseason and in this draft process. We'll see if the Bears bring him in for an interview, if they go to some of his pro days and things like that. But keep that name in mind, Gabe Jacas, what that means for the Chicago Bears, and we'll see if he's a guy that ends up getting his name called by the Bears in the draft. But let's get into this last topic today, another stadium update, and this is how we're going to end the show today. Apparently that there's a court date now in place that will decide on what's going to happen with Arlington Heights and the development there, whether there's going to be tax breaks or anything like that. This came from CBS Sports that said this, from a Illinois representative that said this: if we want the Bears to make a private investment in a privately funded stadium, we have to give them some kind of predictability on the tax bill. Whatever deal we land on is one that does not put people of Illinois in a bad situation. Now, we know that the Bears have talked about privately funding this new stadium basically since they had that press conference. So we know that that's what they intend to do. But the tax breaks in it are a huge, important part of that, because even if they're going to self-fund, getting those tax breaks can be there. Now, we know that the governor has also expressed support of the infrastructure that can get there. So now that we have an official date set on when that's going to happen, that's a good thing, right? So now that is going in there, we'll see what's going to happen. And hopefully the Bears come out of that and get a decision made sooner rather than later, so that we don't lose the Bears to Indiana. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to have the Indiana Bears on that. So the hearings are going to go down on Thursday. It's going to go down in Springfield on top of that. So don't be surprised if Friday on the mailbag we opened up with some of the findings and reports that could have happened in those meetings, and hopefully the Bears come out of that getting the tax breaks that are needed so we can break ground in Arlington Heights like the original plan always was meant to be. But that's it, man. This is what a contender offseason could potentially look like for the Chicago Bears. We just got to need to be calculated and aggressive in our moves, and we'll see what that happens, whether it's cutting salary, flipping assets, drafting players like Gabe Jacas, whatever it is, you have to fortify that defensive line. This is the type of chess that Ryan Poles has to go into and play to get this offseason nailed down for the Chicago Bears. Drop your thoughts on everything down below. What happens with Jaylen Johnson? Would you cut him? What happens with DJ Moore? Would you trade him? I know that's something that we talk about a lot as well. And always make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bears Central. You can send us on any social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.